Episode 2, Dudecast, take 87. Just fooling around. I don't know.
That's a lot of takes.
That would be. Can you imagine a podcast taking 87 takes?
Oh my god!
I mean, I can see if you've got a curated podcast or a very topic specific, like CBC does, where they have very set topics in that thing, where you have a script and you're trying to tell a specific story or do a specific expose on a topic or whatever. You'd have to do several takes to get it right, because you're producing a really nice piece of content.
A produced story, maybe, if you were telling a tale. Or
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that might take a little bit more effort. That's probably a lot more editing involved than...
I think so. But something like this, it's just like pretty much one and done. Like, bang.
Yeah.
I edit a few things. Sometimes I'll get rid of a few of the ums and ahs, or if we've had... long pauses, and not the pregnant pause, but like a long pause, or if a phone goes off or something and we got it, whatever, but we're still rolling, I'll edit that kind of stuff out. But basically it's just start, go, done.
Yeah,
right. And I think most podcasts are that way.
I think so as well. I know some other people that did podcasts as well. Podcasting's interesting, in this day and age, because it has become so popular. And if you look at the amount of podcasts and the amount of podcasts that don't produce anymore as well, it's kind of crazy. It's there's like huge influx and huge drop off, which I personally don't understand. I just like to talk. So for me, it's a fun thing to do. Whatever podcast I happen to be on, I just enjoy doing it. I would probably do it every day of the week if I could.
Right.
If I had that many shows and if it was sustainable, I would probably do it the whole time, and then people would just be sick of hearing of me.
Probably.
At that point, but
maybe not.
You never know. It depends on the cast. Like I said, I'm on several casts at the moment, and they all have a different, line. Some a little more serious than others, and some, a lot more whimsical than others. And
sure,
that's how they work. But it's interesting because there's definitely a drop off, and I know that. I don't know if you ever met Dan, the DXT. He had a podcast for a while with Jill, and he was editing out all the ums and ahs.
Oh,
and it was taking him forever. Because that's going to happen. Me, I have different connector words. Anytime I do away with like the ums, then I'll add a basically, or
Yeah.
It's funny because. Those connector words, why they happen really in reality is that because this is off the cuff, is that sometimes you need your brain to kind of catch up to what you're saying. You need to, kind of articulate in your head what you're going to say before you say it. And that pause gives you, the ability to do so.
For sure.
So a lot of times you will hear, again, those kind of things.
Yeah, the ah, the
And then conscientiously you're trying to, stop those from happening, and then what'll happen is that you will create something new a lot of the time to
a new one will suddenly fart out.
It'll manifest itself,
for sure.
And I see that. I see that in my YouTube videos as well, because even though I do edit my YouTube videos, a lot of my tutorial ones, I am just doing what I'm doing and going through it. And I'm trying to, number one, think about what I'm exactly doing.
Yeah.
So I'll do things like motion graphic tutorials. So I'm trying to, in my head, figure out how I'm doing this. I have an idea of what I want to do, but how to explain it.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of stuff going on,
for sure,
and it creeps in there.
And in an interesting way, right?
Yeah.
Not just step one, do this, step two, like that monotone kind of thing.
Or, unboxings where you are unboxing something.
And you literally don't know what you're going to find.
You don't know what you're going to find in there. And you're just, it's a one-shot deal because you only open the damn thing once. Like, it's only new in box once. And then when you rip it apart, it's all coming out, and you're just reacting to it. So... that's just kind of how that stuff rolls. You
know what? I forgot the theme song.
You forgot the theme song?
I forgot the theme song. Pause. We should probably roll the pre-roll.
mid podcast.
Mid podcast. Here it goes. And we're back. As I derailed us because I wanted an edit point for the theme song. What did you think of it, by the way? I know we talked about it in several of the podcasts last season, where we're like, boy, we can't wait to hear the theme song. It'll be really cool to see everything kind of.
Yeah, it's always, music's kind of one of those things that it always adds to it. I find it adds to it. We sit here and we talk, and there's no music, and we don't have like a road procast podcasting where we can pre-roll our music when we do it.
Play sound effects.
Although, Road, if you are listening, you by all means send me one, because I do really want to play with the damn thing.
Yeah.
I just don't want to buy it.
Well, they were Twittering you for a while there, responding back and forth, weren't they?
Yeah, well, they were just trying to sell it to me. Right, is really what it is. And it's funny, like, to be honest, when I do stuff like that, sometimes it's just kind of putting out a fishing line.
Right, just to see.
That's the funny thing with a social media game, is sometimes I will put stuff out there. It's like, I just want to have a conversation with you guys.
Yeah.
So you guys can see my name, and then when I talk to you again, maybe later on, that it's it's a familiar name, and then eventually, it's like, it's that guy.
Maybe something that happens. Yeah, exactly.
So it was just kind of putting it out there. I mean, it is a piece of equipment that I have been looking at, but
well, it might be interesting to approach. I don't even know. I suppose Long and McQuaid would carry them. Like Amazon, you could probably order. Good luck getting a hold of anybody at Amazon. But anybody else local, what would it be? Music shops, maybe Best Buy, something like that. You could probably like electronic
VizTech, the camera store.
Oh, the VizTech,
Long and McQuaid.
So I wonder if we could approach them in a advertising capacity to say, hey, look, we're interested in this. We'd like to play with the gear. Could you loan it to us for a matter of 2 or 3 weeks?
Loaner gear, I think, could potentially happen.
And then let us review it, and then link your store and kind of have a collaboration that way.
Yeah, that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
The only problem with loaner stuff is you have to give it back.
Well, of course, yeah. So if you end up really liking it, then it's like, oh well.
Because Canon does that. They'll send you loaner stuff,
right?
And you get to play with it for a bit, but you send it back. At the end of the day, unless you're one of their top pro photographers,
right?
Then it's like, here's this brand new $10,000 lens. Enjoy. And it's like, oh, thank you.
It's always amazing to me that the guys and the gals at the top who can afford the best gear and afford all this stuff get it all for free.
Yeah.
It's like wild. I'm like, what?
That's just life, though. I mean, if you look at things like the Grammys or the Emmys or the Oscars, all these guys go in there and they have more money than you and I will ever have. And they can afford probably all this stuff, but they get gifted, all this stuff. They'll have giant gift bags when they show up to these shows, and they'll walk out with all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, I think all those companies are looking for is that one, like striking that note, is that you get that piece of gear, or you get that makeup that you really like, or you get, that beard oil you really like. And it's like, hey, I got this cool beard oil from company X. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and that's it. And that endorsement is worth
a gajillion dollars. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. That's all it takes. One tweet, one Instagram post, one Facebook share or whatever. And suddenly that company's now making millions or, hundreds of thousands as opposed to just a couple $100 or whatever it happened to be. There was, it always makes big news too, because every time in the Grammys or the Emmys roll around, there's always somebody local in Calgary that somehow manages to get an item into one of those gift bags. Do you remember last year? It was, I can't remember the item, but I was looking at it going, who would spend money on that? Yeah. But I'm like, oh yeah, I guess rich ladies that like to watch the Emmys. I bet
you it costs them a pretty penny to get their items in those bags as well. Number one, there'll be the cost associated with it. So I don't know how many of those things to give out. Like, let's say 1,000.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, if your item's $100, I mean, you're in for $100,000, and I guarantee you probably have to pay
the curator of the gift bags, right? You probably have to pay.
There's probably an in, like, it's probably a $50,000 in.
Jesus,
just to probably get your product. Yeah, it's it's interesting how all that social media back scratching stuff kind of works. And it's interesting as well, because I think that when you look at things like truth in advertising.
Yep.
Where
that's like a Canadian government.
It's a Canadian government thing.
Right.
It's like you can't say that our car is the fastest car in the world when it's not. So, or, this will save you millions of dollars when it won't, or this will cure your disease when it doesn't.
Right.
You can't say those kind of things, but, a lot of these things I think are being skirted by social media and social media influencers.
For sure.
And that, a lot of times it's not on the level. That a lot of times when you say, like for example, the little podcast studio, it's the best podcast studio in the world. Like, if they've given you that item and you haven't disclosed that and you're saying that, you're really kind of,
Well, YouTube's got new policies with that. They came out with last year, right? Like if you're sponsored or paid or given a product, you have to disclose.
Right.
In your video, you say this
that's Canadian law too.
And that's Canadian, and it kind of has been for
forever.
A long time. Yeah. But that's a new thing for YouTube.
Right.
I don't think it exists on the other platforms.
But the difference is, like for example, when I made mountain bike films, I would it's like, these are our sponsors, and it was like pre-roll, it's like,
right.
And I mean, part of that was to give the company the advertising, at the very, very beginning, and then you would see it throughout the the film. But it was product placement, But we're disclosing, like we're saying, this guy's sponsored, these guys sponsored, these guys sponsored.
Right.
I think with YouTube, because you are self-produced and that a lot of people can just buy a camera and then upload something to YouTube and really don't necessarily understand the business aspect of things or the legality, they just kind of skip it. I mean, that's why copyright in music is such a big deal on YouTube, because nobody seems to care about it because of, things like Napster, and they think that,
well, they don't understand.
They don't understand, so they just do it. And, it's unfortunately, ignorance, can get yourself in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Ignorance of the law is not a defense.
And I would say that, people, at least to a degree, typically understand copyright of music, but they don't necessarily understand advertising standards at all.
Well, no, exactly. And it's funny though. I've had conversations with people though too about the music thing, and they're like, "Well, no, it's I'm making a product, and that music is now part of my product. It's not. I'm not stealing that music, and I'm giving that person advertising. It's free spreading of their brand." And I'm like, "No, that's not really how that works. That's not what's going on there." Yeah, you're right. It just, people don't really quite understand the concept. And I try to, it's hard because as a content creator, creative holder of musical copyrights, it's very difficult for me to see people, A, steal music in any way, shape, or form, but B, also photography, art, movies, all of that kind of stuff. We live in a country, Canada is very funny because we kind of live in a gray area with the whole streaming downloading thing, where technically if you're not keeping a hard copy of that movie, you're actually not breaking the law. But my big explanation to people is, just because it's not illegal doesn't mean it's legal.
Yeah.
And this pertains to things like Android boxes, streaming service boxes, any of those Kodi type apps that you can buy and put on the device to aggregate streams to watch a brand new movie that's still in theaters.
Yeah.
Sure, it's not illegal because you're not keeping a copy, but it's not legal. You're watching that piece of content without the people that spent millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of man hours to create it, without any of them being compensated.
Yeah.
And that's stealing.
Yeah.
Black and white, right?
Yeah. It's rampant. It's rampant across the internet. It's interesting that we're having this conversation, because
this was not the idea for the podcast I had in mind, but we'll roll with it.
This is how the podcast works.
Absolutely.
You just kind of roll with the stream of thought.
Yeah.
So this month I got new representative for my photography to enforce copyright, and I've had that throughout the years. It's kind of one of those things, and the game has sort of changed in those regards as well, because we're not talking about print media anymore. We're talking about digital and how effective people are. Who knows? So this company's based out of Germany. So signed on with them. This month alone, I have filed 30,000 euros worth of copyright infringement claims.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's more than some people make at a minimum wage job for their entire year. Good for you.
Yeah.
Germans, they are very efficient.
Yes. Well, that was part of it. These guys approached me and they said, we have this. They have a software that can help identify stuff. This is what we're going to do.
Right.
Again, the copyright infringement stuff isn't necessarily anything new. It's not a new game.
No.
It's just how and who did it and where. Sure. So I'm like, sure, we'll give it a try. We'll give it a couple months, and we'll see how you guys, pay out, and we'll do that. But they were pulling stuff out that I was just shocked.
Really?
Yeah, to the point, and I mean, these are egregious infringements. This isn't you shared my Facebook post and you didn't credit me. Like we're talking about you took a photograph and you are now manufacturing prints and selling it.
Wow,
on the internet.
really?
Yeah.
That's insane.
And tons.
See, and that to me, that doesn't even fall under that weird gray area digital. That is for sure. I'm taking something I didn't create and now I'm putting it on a product and selling it and making money.
Absolutely.
That is theft.
And it's kind of a double whammy as well, because the last chunk of stuff that I got were all Red Hot Chili Pepper photographs that I had of Flea and Anthony and all these guys.
Right.
And they were making, prints and t-shirts and all sorts of stuff. So not only are you messing me over, but you're messing those guys over.
Well,
and let's be honest, their lawyers are way better than my lawyers.
Way more expensive lawyers.
And in order to do something commercial, even to take, if I sold you my photograph, typically when I sell my photograph, it is for editorial use only, meaning that it is a magazine article. You're speaking about the band, or you're talking about the band or the band history, so on or so forth.
Right.
The only people that will do commercial stuff with images will be the band, typically when the publicist hires.
Right.
If they put out a book, whatever the case may be, those are the kind of the only things, and that's
or
all
band
the band
merch,
stuff.
T-shirts or whatever. Yeah,
that's the band's business. I'm just a photographer, but messing with me, is one thing, because my legal team's going to be tiny. You get on the wrong side of those guys, and you've got
that's a world of hurt.
Yeah, it's
that's insane.
Crazy.
So now you were saying, in the past month they've filed approximately 30,000 euros worth of copyright claims. Will all of that, and I guess it's maybe too soon to tell, but will all of those actually turn into $30,000 into your pocket?
No,
because most of them won't settle.
Number one is any of those type of lawyers, unless you're paying them directly, which I don't.
Right.
They work on a retainer basis, so they take a large percentage, obviously.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Case. Typically, they're probably aiming. My guess is for settlement would be typical law process. So of course, if you let's say that one person's getting sued for $30,000. Sure. They're not going to take $30,000.
Right.
They're not going to pay out 30, and so there'll be a middle ground. So maybe it's 15, and then they'll take their percentage. So
still.
Yeah, the fact is if you're stealing something and putting it on a product and selling it and making a profit off it, you've already kind of fucked up.
Yeah. No. Exactly.
It's
that's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's daily that they're bringing stuff forward. Whatever they're doing it very efficiently.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff in there, because I do work for magazines. They're like this magazine, and I whitelist a ton of stuff. It's I work for these guys. These guys buy my stuff all the time.
Yeah, they purchase the license for it. Or whatever else.
This is all good. This is all good. Yeah. I have no idea where this came from. You know? And it's funny because most of the stuff. In my contracts, if it gets put out on the internet and it's not the artist, there will always be a watermark unless they're paying
the money for the license without the watermark.
And it's funny, some of these images are showing up where I know I haven't released them to the artists, and the artists aren't using them. So and there's no watermark to be
seen
of.
So they've cropped the photo
or edited it out.
Wow,
so
crazy.
They're taking the time to do that, which I guess is all part of the I steal your stuff and sell it business, I guess.
It's just crazy to me, where you would get the gumption to think that would be an okay thing to do, just because you're not.
I think largely it's because you don't get caught.
Yeah,
because people don't know.
Well, right? I know, but I guess getting back to the last podcast, it's where's the decency? How did you grow up thinking that it would be okay just because you didn't get caught to do that thing?
Yeah.
It blows me away. Again, talking about, copyright and, you kind of excuse it a little bit with music or movies or whatever, where it's, it is a gray area. People don't really know, if you explain it to them, and I've told people, I've given them the scenario and explained it out, and they're like, holy shit. Okay, well, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. So you can kind of or, you know, you think because people don't know, you can kind of excuse it almost like, well, okay, they didn't know, they're not going to do it anymore or whatever. But that's like just outright, blatant, complete theft.
I think it depends where you go to. Like last year I was in, you know, Malaysia, Singapore. Singapore is a different beast because it's very, very regulated and everything's illegal in Singapore. Whereas Malaysia, not so much.
Yeah.
And, you know, going shopping and taking a look for goods, you know, you would see something and you'd be like, man, those are the cheapest pair of Chuck Taylors I've ever seen.
Right.
That's amazing.
Sure.
They're not real.
Right.
And, you know, some of them are very good knockoffs and some of them are really, but really it's poor. Rampant.
Right.
Rampant. It's, I mean, across the board, you know, I don't even think I could buy a pair of shoes there because I would never know if they're legitimately,
right.
You know.
Well, unless you were actually in the mall at the Chuck Taylor store. I don't know if that exists, but
you know, I would be surprised even then if it was legit.
Really?
Yeah, it's just crazy. You know, like Thrasher stuff. Like I'm an old school skater. I love Thrasher stuff.
Right.
Everywhere. It's like, you know, and I know the guys from Thrasher, and I know how they kind of have stuff laid out that you do have to actually be in a skateboard shop per se.
Right.
Although, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of a gray area in that, even in North America.
I feel like at some point there you could buy their stuff at like a Hot Topic or something like that.
Yeah, it shouldn't happen that way.
Right.
Like, typically, they're not that. If you're not a skate shop, they don't want you selling their stuff.
And that makes sense.
For them, they're, you know, Thrasher has always been about being a hardcore skater, not about being, you know,
a poser.
Yeah, a poser. Great term.
Right?
Great term.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's everywhere there. So I you know, and you have to look at that as a country and as a society. Basically, it's very acceptable there to completely knock off and rip off and sell in, you know, wide open public stuff that's not legit.
Well, I remember being in Hong Kong and walking down. We went to, I can't remember which street or market it was, but it was like basically the knockoff alley. It was like every stall was Louis Vuitton bags and Kipling bags,
those
and
are everywhere
these
too.
Things and these shoes and this type of brand and like Kenneth Cole suits, and you're like, well, yeah, but none of this is and of course the prices reflect that, like you're paying cheap prices. But I'm like, it's weird to me where people would want the brand name or that thing so badly that they're willing to and knowingly purchase a knockoff or an inferior product just that has the name that kind of looks like it, or the logo that kind of looks like it. Like, okay, sure. So you want that thing, save up your money for 3 months and then buy it. Don't waste your time with the thing that's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
I guess it's just a different mindset, like you said.
Do it just for the gram, I guess. I don't know. You know,
all the fake Rolex gramming that goes on and benzing and so on and so forth. What was that rapper that was caught, quote unquote, caught last year taking pictures from his private jet?
Yeah,
and it was actually like some exhibit at an airplane museum or something. And that's where.
Very nice, very nice. There's a huge industry around that. You know, if you watch like Vice, there's a mini documentary, Vice documentary on luxury car rental.
Really?
So a lot of these people posing with Lamborghinis and Ferraris and, you know, trying to show that they have all this money are really just kind of renting the cars for like an hour to do a photo shoot, bang on to the next one. And the guy that does the rental business is
laughing,
making lots and lots of money
for sure.
You know, these luxury cars, but you know, again, it's sort of putting it out there that, hey, I have this, and it's definitely not the case. So I mean, I can understand, you know, $3,000, $5,000 Louis Vuitton bag, you buy one for $50, you know, in a corner of Hong Kong. You know, do you really care? You know,
I don't know. I guess I've just never been in that mindset. To me, I would always...
And you know, people are going to justify these things in a way that, you know, it's like Louis Vuitton already makes some money. Who's going to pay $5,000 for a handbag?
Lots of people.
You know, and I'm sure I know lots of people are. But you know, there's that whole justification.
Sure, of course,
that goes up to it, so you can basically justify it to yourself why you're doing.
Oh yeah, no, humans are nothing if not brilliant at justifying and making excuses for ourselves for our shitty decisions. You know, or our less than perfect decisions. Let's call it that, because I'm not not here to judge people. Like I don't know you. I don't know your
judging
life.
you all.
But yeah, no, it's crazy to me. I always would much rather save my money and buy the thing that I actually want. Even if it takes me 6 months to save up for it, or a year, or whatever it happens to be. And the funny thing is I've done that with a couple things, and I'm like, oh, I'm saving for XYZ item. I get the money, and then I go, yeah, you know what? I actually don't really want that anyway. I wonder why I wanted it in the first place. It was to show off to people, or because I thought it was cool. I saw it in the movie. Will Smith was wearing this really cool Breitling watch, or whatever it happened to be, and then you get it and go, yeah, no, I didn't really want that. It's not going to make me happy.
Yeah,
yeah, it's wild. And then, that's the whole other thing of like that whole brand name. And what's interesting to me too, is that a lot of them are going to be locked down with patents and copyright, trademark, And then you get a company like Tesla that goes and releases all of their technology to public knowledge.
Yeah.
And they say, here, this is all our design plans. This is all our patents. Go improve on it.
Yeah.
And the crazy part to me is that at least to my knowledge, currently, there's nobody that's actually reproducing off-brand Teslas. I mean, it takes
not yet, but I guarantee you any major automotive manufacturer is taking a look at that and using that technology to add to their own.
Well, I would hope.
You would think. That's the one thing. If you want to say anything about like a guy like Elon Musk, to me, he's doing it right.
Yeah.
He's really kind of building his legacy.
For sure.
20 years from now, 50 years from now, I'm pretty sure in history, well, we probably won't have books, history tablets, or, the written history of the world.
Yeah.
His name will come up.
Knowledge cubes.
Yeah. Knowledge cubes. Yeah.
Right?
Memory injection, whatever it
happens to be. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. People will remember his name.
And I think for him, that's important.
Right.
I think to him, that's more important than money.
I think you're right.
And all the power to him. I can respect that. I mean, obviously he has a lot of money as well.
Of course, yeah.
If you look at, if I forget his name off the top of my head, the head of Amazon as well.
Oh, Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, he's sort of going that route as well.
Well, it's funny though, because to me it seems like Jeff Bezos is interested in two things. A, making Amazon the most prolific, biggest, most humongous worldwide retail force ever.
Yeah.
And B, making a humongous amount of money doing it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to me like he wants people to necessarily know his name.
Yeah.
Because I think if you talk to the average Joe Blow and you say Jeff Bezos, they're like, who?
Yeah. But he just announced his space program as well.
Okay, so see, I missed this.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's interesting as well that these guys are very focused on space. I think they were talking about putting a man on the moon again right away, which is interesting as well. I kind of honestly wonder, like, if somebody gets to the moon, like, what's the deal there? Like, what's the deal?
I don't know.
If I walk out and I find a piece of unclaimed land, it's not going to happen on Earth. But the moon, who's claimed the moon? So if I'm there first, like, do I get to like put my shopping mall there?
I think back in the early 60s, even though the space race was going on, the United Nations kind of put together a thing where the moon is unclaimable. It belongs to all of mankind. And because they saw the potential of like corporations or a single individual to send something there and say, well, this is mine. Ha 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 ha. But they kind of came to a treaty saying that the moon would be off limits. Like we can't claim it for any one specific use or purpose or whatever.
So if I build an Amazon warehouse there, that's a no-go?
I don't know. I mean, things change so much.
Yeah. If you can't get there, what are you gonna stop me?
You're gonna stop me? Yeah, exactly.
Go Moonraker.
Well, it's cool though too, because you're saying, what are we going to do when we get there? They're saying that there's water, there's minerals, there's titanium, gold, like all these things on the moon. I don't know if they found fossil fuels per se, but there's a bunch of different stuff. Selenium, I think it is, which is like super important for manufacturing computer components and this and whatever else. And it's maybe the material's not right, but something like that. And it's supposed to be in humongous quantities on the moon. So they're like, well, we can go and mine it.
But if you don't own it.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and who gives you the mining rights to it?
I don't know. There's so many weird
Mind
things.
you, who stops you if you go and do it? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, we got a little Land Rover. It's like, we're just taking samples.
Yeah.
really what you're doing is strip mining. It's interesting as well because I just read an article that the moon is actually contracting. It's getting smaller.
Right.
The theory is that much like Earth, it had a molten core, but because it was smaller, break off of whatever created us in the Big Bang, that it's actually cooled to a point where it's longer
kind of collapsing in on itself now.
Yeah, so it's kind of shrinking.
Interesting.
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Huh. Well, NASA.
Not that I'm going to be around for the end results of that.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. But it is interesting. NASA announced, of course, that was it 2022? We're going to the moon to set up a permanent residence, essentially.
Yeah.
We're going to put a campsite on the moon, which I think is really cool because if we can go and make sustained lunar living possible, then that means we've got extended space travel possible and extended eventual colonization of Mars.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, people have been talking about since 1901 or 1902. If you remember a movie Disney remade called, I think they just called it Mars. The original book was called Barsoom. And we've been talking about this colonization of Mars, this lost civilization that lives there, like all these different things, and going to visit it. We've been talking. It's been part of the sort of common culture and imagination of man for at least 100 or so years.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really cool if we can get there and actually get something.
Well, we're gonna have to eventually because we're
running out of space.
We're gonna wreck the planet anyways.
Yeah,
so we gotta go wreck somewhere else.
We gotta go wreck somewhere else. We're the universe's biggest virus.
Yeah.
Right. Wild. Well, on that note. I think that'll cap off episode 2. What do you think?
There you go.
That's probably a good idea. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Dudecast. I've been Nick.
I'm JD.
And we'll see you on the next one.
See ya.